Hey, what's happening? Just a little, man. Celebrate Freedom Tea, man. I want to jump on here, man, and talk to a few people. I'm gonna wait till I get one or two people on here before I start chopping it up. Even though I know you can go back and watch it as much as you can, as much as you need to. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just want to rant a little bit. Today is Juneteenth. Today is Celebrate Freedom Day. So I want to be sure that I remind people, of the struggles that we've been through. I was talking to a brother yesterday, and we were just talking about all the different things to where we as a people stood up for our rights. Especially in the South, here in Mississippi, North Carolina, and even the instances in the North and New York and different places to where, we stood up for our freedom. So it was the New African Movement. Then now they don't talk about it a lot. You don't see a lot of press on it, but we had one here in Jackson where they attacked a few of them. Hey, how you doing, Miss Carter? And so I think that it's important that we are reminded of the days that after slavery, that the people in Texas, in Galveston, Texas, what people don't talk about is when General Graves them left Washington, they had to come around the Atlantic, to get through the Gulf. But on the way to Galveston, Texas, they stopped off in South Carolina, and actually there was some plantations that still had people in slavery there, but you never hear that. You know what I mean? And so it wasn't like they had a telephone where they could call and say, hey, they free down there, free them. So the South was still engulfed in a big struggle in Louisiana and Mississippi. So the Confederates still had control of the Red River. Those rebels who wasn't informed that the war was over, they were still fighting here in the South. And so a lot of people were still engulfed in a war, So the Confederate had control of the Red River, so the Union wasn't able to cross over and to get into the people of Western Louisiana and Texas, to let them know that they were free. They was thinking that the war was still going on. You've seen some of the movies where they show where people were still fighting during those times. Anyhow, on June 19th, when General Gordon Granger landed in Galveston, he went on a street called Market in Maine. Me going down there and just seeing where history took place. So when they went to the shores, they sent out different troops out to the land, out to the outer areas of Texas to bring in all the people, to let them know that they were free. And so they had General Order number 3, that he was letting the slave plantation owners know that these people that you are holding in bondage are free. Now, a lot of people used to, when I was young, a lot of people used to make fun of Juneteenth because people always say, well, that's when they're late. So they were made free late. You know what I mean? Y'all the last one to get, but in actuality, man, we were still in slavery here in Mississippi all the way up until the 70s. And then even in some instances now, you can consider sharecropping, which is a form of southern labor here in Mississippi, Louisiana, and Alabama. You still can consider that slavery because of what they're doing. The plantation owner, be it the farm owners now, are letting black migrant workers work on their property. They're charging them rent. They let them live in their houses as long as they work, on their farms. The minute he quits working on that farm, he got to get out of that house and get off his plantation. So you actually still consider that slavery. So this happened now. I grew up in a system of sharecropping where my dad worked for a man named Johnny Howard, and wherever he would always give us a house, let my dad raise, hogs, chicken, or whatever need be, and grow our own garden. But the day my dad retired from him, the next week we had to move. You know what I mean? So my dad retired in like 1976. So the next day we had to move. We moved back in the city limits of Mound Bayou. So be mindful now that slavery, we celebrate Juneteenth, which is, 2.5 years after 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation. Be mindful, man, that in the South, we were still enslaved, And so immediately after slavery, and 20 or 30 years later, in the South, Alabama and Louisiana created Angola, Alabama created their their prison system, but we have what we know as parchment. So in order for the plantation owners to still work, they created a system of laws, vagrant laws, to where they could lock up. They had people as young as 12 and 13 that were locked up on parchment ground. You know what I mean? To serve out a sentence of loitering. You had people given 18 months for loitering, just so they could get out. And the biggest time that they were locking people up was during the harvest season. You know what I mean? Hey, how you doing, Ms. Anderson? You know, so I just want to be people to be made in a mindset that's centered around freedom. If you're not free here in your heart and in your mind, then you're in bondage anyway. So if you go to a job every day repetitiously, man, you're a slave to that job. You're a slave to your bills, because if you don't pay your bills, man, your light's going to get cut off, your gas is going to get off. So in essence, you're still enslaved to something until you have, for me, and I'm a Christian, I'm not speaking for everybody. For me, if you don't have the internal freedom of Christ in your heart, then you're not truly free. And if you can stand with the internal freedom of Christ and say you have Christ in your heart and you want to stand up for your people, then you don't fully have the content of the Holy Spirit within your heart, because you got to stand up against oppression. You know what I mean? I know a lot of people get on and say I'm random, venting this, that, and the other. I just hate to see my people, man, misused in any form, any way, shape, or fashion, especially when it comes from people of another color. You know what I mean? And what I'm saying is that there's some good white people that died alongside of us in the civil rights movement, after Reconstruction, that were trying to restore and bring us on an equal plane. We'll never be equal until they can look us in the eye and see them as themselves. Then we'll never be equal. They're going to always look down on us. Even the poorest of them are going to look down upon us. You know what I mean? No matter how many degrees we have, no matter how many business we own, i.e. Tulsa, i.e. Elaine, Arkansas, no matter how much we do and progress financially, there's going to always be an inherent jealousy among them towards us. You know why? Because their parents teach them that. Their parents teach them at birth and all the way up through at them being a child that they're better than us, just because of the color of their skin, just because of what we've been through. Man, we're the only people in the United States that don't really have our own community. We spend our money with everybody else. Man, you don't see no Chinese shopping on with us on Juneteenth, making their business and going down to Ferris Street. You don't see any Hispanic going down on Ferris Street, spending time and spending money with us. But as soon as Cinco de Mayo comes, everybody want to go to the parade. Everybody want to go to a Mexican restaurant and build their pockets up. Man, they ain't spending it back with us. Ask them for a discount. They ain't even giving you no military discounts at that place. You know what I mean? So we pour our money into their communities, yet we won't celebrate by going to our community, like going to Ferris Street, like going to Hattiesburg to the festival, like taking your kids to the museum and bringing them up on history. You know what I mean? So we want to talk about history, but we want to think, we listen to them, to what they tell us about our history. Oh, that's over with, slavery don't exist anymore. So we can just, we can forget that. We can forgive that and move on. That has happened. Man, they're still stabbing you in the back. They're still committing the same trickery, effery, you know what I mean, that they've been doing since what they've done is they've took the whips and chain and used the sentences, they used the justice system to enslave us. You know what I mean? So that brings me now back to parchment. You know, you got us coming back and forth to work under a system of enslavement. Man, as long as that blood is bitter and bad, parchment is never going to have any peace. MDOC is never going to have any peace, because their whole system is what they can do for them. How can they line their pockets? You know what I mean? And so I've been quiet for a minute, not because of there hasn't been anything going on. There's been a lot going on. You know what I mean? And I think that I wanted to give Batman time enough to miss his Robin. But I want to let him know that, man, my eye is still on you. While you got your hand down here in the pot, down here at central office, or you think that you have the ear of the commissioner You know what I mean? That you can dictate and pull a puppet string to how he institutes or implements people in his hierarchy. Man, fix the leaks at Parchman. Go out there to 29 and fix the leaks out there. Go over to 30. Go over to those camps that don't have any air conditioning and make sure that they got, some ice and some water and everything. Go over to your long-term segregation and take care of them. Walk over there and talk to them. While you're worried and concerned about what's going on everywhere but Parchman. You know what I mean? Men are still committing suicide. And families are concerned. They're contacting me about Timothy Fisher, who didn't have 1 year to go home. You know what I mean? Because he felt oppressed. At Unit 29, because they falsely accused him down here at CMCL, sent him to long-term segregation to H building. After he get out, they were supposed to put him back in general population because the man was taking every course that he could. He was doing everything that he was down here. You know what I mean? So for you to arbitrarily lock him up and send him to Parchman for some investigation, none of your staff got fired when none of them were looking at on the computer, having access to the internet, doing whatever they were supposed to be doing. None of your staff got reprimanded. What you did was you took all the inmates and sent them to a whole nother institution, and you punish their families. You make their families have to travel a long way to go visit them. You know what I mean? And the same way you're saying that you're wondering about your fish pond or your pavilion out there. You know what I mean? Again, you said we don't have any money. Where you getting the money to do that? You know what I mean? I like to, send a shout out too, man, to a good friend of mine who's retiring. But already before the man retired, man, you're putting your bid for the person that you want to take his place. You know what I mean? You want to recommend one of your people from probation and parole, when you need to first tell them to fix the parole system, probation. Mississippi has more people that are incarcerated for parole violations than any other state in the United States. And 65% of those who have been violated and sent back to prison is simply because they have missed their payment. They missed their $25 payment that they're paid, not their fines or not their restitution, but their payment to the parole board and parole office. If you realize that there's over 190,000 people that's on probation or parole, and they have to pay their parole person or parole office $25 a month. I just want you to take that into account. And I'll do the math. Next time I come over, I have the math for you. But if we have over 190,000 people on parole currently that are free, that has to pay $25 a month to their parole or probation office, if they miss one payment, they can be violated and sent back to prison. Let's just say if he had a life sentence, he got on parole, he can be sent back for a term of 10 years to life just because he missed a $25 payment. You know what I mean? In Louisiana, they can miss at least 4 or 5, and then they have organizations that'll help them get caught up on their payments. But in Mississippi, the minute that they miss their payment, let's just say if a parole officer don't like you, and you've been on probation or parole 10 years, and you made your payments for 10 consecutive years or 9.5 consecutive years, because you missed one payment, he can violate you. You act like we don't have hard time, man. COVID brought us hard time. Life gives us hard time, especially if you're a convicted felon. So I think that the place that you came from, not correction, Batman, you came from probation and parole. So what is your fantasy or fixation with getting everybody from probation and parole a job within correction? We need people who know correction to learn to come in and do correction for us. There's a lot of qualified people who have been in correction at MDOC, at CMCF for 29 and 30 years that are qualified for these positions. But you guys coming over from, you and Brad Huffman, Nathaniel Blevins coming over from probation and parole. You from probation and parole. You never worked in an institution. Show you simple fact. You volunteered to come in when we were going through the riots in 2020. In 2020, when you came down to Parchman, you and your significant other came down to Parchman. When the guy was trying to explain to you what was about to happen, what was going on, what had happened, because you brought all these inmates from Greene County because the people in Greene County said that they didn't want them down there. So they weren't supposed to have any closed custody inmates down there. See, they don't put this on the news. You know what I mean? You brought all those inmates from Greene County who were closed custody, red and white. For those you don't know who closed custody is, that's red and white people. You brought them down there and you put them at Parchman in C-Zone, which is open base. You got A custody, you got green and white, you got black and white, people who have been doing good. How you doing, Ms. Colton, you all right? So you bring all these people down here and you just put them in open dorms. So these guys, closed custody is supposed to be locked down at least 23 hours a day. Supposed to get 1 hour for a shower, and they're supposed to get day room time a couple hours, at least 3 times a week. But you brought all these people down because the white people in Greene County said they didn't want them down there anymore. So they got a bus and brought them all to Parchman, Unit 29. Put them in C building, I building, all the different buildings at 29. You know what I mean? But you want to paint this picture that it happened because the officer did this or whatever. However it happened. Long story short, while you were there, and the suit is still going on, so you'll have to answer that. You know what I mean? And if either one of y'all can Google, just Google McClure. You know what I mean? Versus, I can't think of the guy's name, but I'll get his name for you if you inbox me. Just Google that where you shot the man in the back with the gun. When he was walking away trying to talk to you. You shot him in the back, but yet and still, you were allowed to come in and be the superintendent at CMCL. You know what I mean? You know, they let Robin go for whatever reason, you know, it's alleged that it's misuse of appropriate misuse of funds, which he had permission from you to do. You know what I mean? So if you gave him permission to do all those things, there's nothing he could do without you knowing. You know what I mean? So you're just as liable. You know what I mean? So you should have fell on the sword for him. You should have. You close to retirement. You already got your time in. You can retire tomorrow. And you'll be set. But you got a man that follows you, following in your footsteps, but you let him take the sword. You know what I mean? You know, and my only problem with him was the words that he used to refer to me. So I wanted to make it my personal business and let him know, man, that I wasn't bothering you, so don't bother me. And you know what you did to me, Batman. You know what you're doing to all the other people who were down there. When you turn your eye to violence and assault by one of your high upper staff, when they inflict pain and harm on another one of your staff in your presence, when you don't discipline them, just because they came from the feds as a counselor and unit manager, and bringing them down there out of retirement to come down and be corruption with this good old boy mentality, with this Donald Trump mentality, then you're just as liable. You keep turning your face away from everything that's going on right under your nose as if you don't know it. Then you want to say, well, I didn't know. Just like when you had the meeting about the $75,000 come up missing. You know, your words out loud was, I'm not taking the ball for you. You need to find out where it comes from. You know what I mean? So people who can Google, people who know how to do it, man, just follow the money trail. Follow the money trail. You know what I mean? Just follow the money trail. Like I tell people, when I came to Parchman, and you can look up the inmate trust fund, it was $1.1 million. While I was there in a year, it went from 1.1 million to 1.9. When they created these so-called inmate clubs to where families are sending in money to their loved ones in order for them to purchase pizza, chicken, and everything that are going on. I mean, food at the visitation, man, they're making money. They're supposed to re-implement. They're supposed to reuse these implements for the inmates, for different stuff for the guys who are incarcerated. You know what I mean? So when that money is misused, just like when you close the club down here at CMCF and all the money that was in that club, it was over $200,000 in that club. Where's the money? Where's the money? You promised to build quote-unquote tiny homes for an organization here in the Jackson area that the guys down there were supposed to be building. They're still using the money. They're spending the money. But when you don't have money coming in, when you close all the clubs and consolidate and make one club, so now you got all your money in one central pot at all these different institutions. You got the Hobbycraft Club. You got the club that you have at MBOC. Where's the money going? All the money that we're bringing in, you say you don't have any money. Where's the money going? So Batman, while you are down here trying to insert your person as the head of, or making recommendations because you have the ear of your boss, and you want to tell him who you think should come in and serve as the director. Mario Grady, I think I've never had any problem with him. I've never heard anything bad about him. Yeah, he's an African American. I think that he's qualified to do the job, and I think that he will be very well served. Or I even think that Mr. Hunt was a good CID. He's never been in corrections. So take him out of his uncomfortable zone and put him back to where he's comfortable. You know what I mean? Back at the head. You know what I mean? And bring somebody in, or bring Chambers back up down there at CMCF. You know what I mean? Why? You don't want to put Chambers back? Why? Because of his skin color? At not one of your 8 major institutions do you have anybody that is an African American. You know, you're saying that they can serve you for 20, 25, and 30 years within the correctional system, but they're not qualified. There's somebody from probation and parole coming in that's more qualified than somebody who's been at Parchman 27 years. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think that you inserting Deputy Warden Wren to that position, you know, was a good thing. But was it just to ease the pressure that's being put on you by the outside forces? You know what I mean? And as far as you taking the number 2, which is McDonald, but I'm pretty sure that he didn't want it because he didn't want the pressure that comes with that job. The line to people's family when they call, or man, people have called me and said they've called out there checking on their loved one. You won't respond. You keep giving them the same runaround. You know what I mean? So what are we going to have to do? Are we going to have to get our picket signs and go back to the old days and stand in front of Parchman and CMCF at the same time? Juneteenth would have been a good day for it. You know what I mean? But it's coming. It's coming. Just keep what you're doing, sir. It's coming. You know what I mean? Fix the leaks. Fix the roads. Explain what you're doing with that truck, that 18-wheeler that was seized from the cartel that's been sitting down there. You know what I mean? Explain what you're doing to that one. That was donated so you can create a truck driving school. So it's sitting there, man, collecting dust. You know what I mean? Until you want to go pick up something, haul something for MDOC. You know what I mean? So you're just as guilty, man, as your counterpart, as your partner in crime that just left. You know what I mean? And again, it's always you. You, when I say you, I mean the system that lets people who are not of color resign, as opposed to you putting them in the funny papers. You know what I mean? When you let them resign, you give them an opportunity to go do the same thing or another. The same way they let CID Director Chambers resign from the FBI because he had the same racial allegations that he was taking all the jobs from the black, giving them the whites. The same way he did there, he came right here to MDOC and did the same thing. But because he wasn't terminated and he was allowed to resign, he can come back and go back to his old habits. The same way you let Mr. Top Cop go around to different institutions and at least 15 or 20 women, minimum, have filed complaints on him for sexual harassment in his personal capacity, in his official capacity, yet you reward him as a top cop. You know what I mean? It's almost just as bad as the person running for president now with 34 felonies, but you got people with a bad check in Mississippi that's been barred from voting for life. Yet and still, this man can run for the highest office. And I know you're a Trump supporter. Just look at your tag. Look at your tag and look at your tag. You know what I mean? But you letting this man go and run for the highest office in the United States, and he has 34 felonies, but you got a person that's got a felony for writing the check. He's been disenfranchised for life, meaning he can't vote anymore for petty crimes. There are so many instances here in the state of Mississippi. In Maine, I don't care what you do. You still reserve your right to vote. You know what I mean? And so I just wanted to get on here, man, today because it's Celebrate Freedom Day. For those of you who are free mentally and spiritually, and within your heart and don't have any vices that has you tethered down to your past. But man, you got to reflect upon the past to measure the distance that you have come in this day and time. And still, Mississippi, when it comes to racial harmony, we got a long ways to go, man. When it comes to a racial balance within the hiring process, MDOC. When I say hiring, I mean the upper level. You'll let us come in and be a foot soldier, but it's hard for you to appoint us to be one of those people at central office. It's hard for you to appoint us to run an institution. You know what I mean? That's one of the first things that that you guys did. You know what I mean? When somebody brought you over from probation and parole. I like to see your record at probation and parole. Matter of fact, I'm gonna make that my business to look at your track record at probation and parole, to see what you did there, to see how many people you violated and sent back to prison. It should be a conflict of interest for you to even come back and work here, because I'm sure you violated and sent some people back to the institution that you currently now work at. So I like to see just how many people you violated and sent back to prison that you're now over, that you came from probation and parole, and how you treated them while you were in that position of power. Now, you know what I mean? You didn't send your dad off when you was at his institution. You know what I mean? No, you took other inmates to watch over him and care for him, hand and foot, to wait on him hand and foot. You know what I mean? So next time you're having your power breakfast and you want to discuss something, man, pick up the phone and call me, so I can sit in at the round table. You know what I mean? You got an iPhone, yeah. You can hit it. Maybe you can live stream me in there when you have your power breakfast, so we can talk about some of the things. You know what I mean? Or we can talk about it anytime, face to face. You know, you don't have to go around and ask nobody about me. You got my number. I tell you all the time, it's the same number when you call me in and ask me what I work this Saturday, because all the other chaplains are going to be out of town. When I alter my schedule to come in and do extra work for you, when you need somebody to work on Family Day, you ask me could I alter my schedule and come in because you needed the help on Family Day. You didn't say anything about that. You know what I mean? When you called me in. But, you know, you kept lying and spending me like a top, saying that you was going to give me a pen job. I was at CMCF 3 months, and got a pen job when you promised me over a year and a half while you was down, I'm going to get a pen job. Yet you brought these people in like Taylor and all these other people in and gave him a pen job. Juneteenth, man, about MDOC, man. Just remember the struggle that we've been through to get here. And when you reflect upon Juneteenth, don't look at it as them being released late, because just look at that as how things were at that time. You just think about what was going on at that time. Think about how our system of travel was. We didn't have any high-speed communication or anything like that. So we had to get the word to them the best way that we could. You know, people don't even talk about it. Juneteenth, you know, now it's a national holiday, but it's a holiday in Texas. You know, it was a holiday in Texas in the 80s, and Oklahoma, and California. That's a shame that California celebrates Juneteenth. Well, it was a holiday in California before it was ever thought about being a holiday here in Mississippi. You know what I mean? The most populous black state per capita than any other state in the United States. But you have most of us who are formerly incarcerated. They can't exercise their right to vote. They don't have a say in who they can put in office. So when you reflect on this day, man, you reflect on celebrating freedom and be thankful for the opportunities that you have today because of people like Amzie Moore, you know, some of the Mississippi legends, T.R.M. Howard, you know, the people who were champions back in the 40s and the 50s on the ground fighting for us in the Mississippi Delta and down here, Aaron Henry and all the people in Mississippi, man, wherever you are, whatever state you're in, find somebody to celebrate. Tell your kids about one of those little known black heroes, man, that fought for us to have the breath of freedom that we enjoy today. You know what I mean? But thank you. But Batman, I'll be back to see you soon, real soon. You know, take care, man. I love you guys. Happy Juneteenth.